In 2008, Nobel physicist Frank Wilczek published a book making a strange claim about the empty space around you right now. He didn't call it empty, he called it the grid. A dense, active structure that never stops working. Not a container things sit inside. The structure everything exists in and is made of matter itself being a set of disturbances rippling through it. He wasn't speaking loosely. The physics behind Wilczek's Nobel-winning work on the atom led him to exactly this picture. 25 centuries earlier, on the other side of the world, a philosophical tradition reached for something strikingly similar. For a completely different reason. Some people have already taken that resemblance further than either side can support. Ancient scripture, they say, predicted quantum field theory. That claim is wrong. But the honest version of this story is stranger and better documented than the myth. Because it involves a tradition that didn't just sense a field in the world. It argued, 25 centuries ago, that without one, nothing could move at all. Start with Wilczek, because his claim is the one that can actually be tested. Frank Wilczek shared the 2004 Nobel Prize in Physics for asymptotic freedom, a discovery about how the strong force works, the force that holds the insides of atoms together. It is some of the most precisely tested physics ever done, and it led him to a conclusion that sounds, at first, like mysticism. Empty space is not empty. What we casually call a vacuum, the nothing between the stars, the nothing inside an atom, is, in the physics Wilczek helped build, not an absence at all. It is a medium, structured, active, full of fields that extend through every point of space without a single gap. Here is the part that breaks most people's intuition. In this picture, particles are not tiny objects sitting in space. An electron is not a tiny marble. It is a disturbance in a field. A ripple in something that is already everywhere. What looks like a solid little thing is really a pattern in an underlying medium, the way a wave is a pattern in water, not a separate object riding on top of it. Wilczek gave this medium a name. He called it the grid, and he was careful and a little provocative about what he was invoking. He called the grid, in his own words, a modern ether. That word matters, because the ether was supposed to be dead. For centuries, physicists imagined space was filled with an invisible substance that carried light. Then, in 1887, a famous experiment failed to find it, and Einstein built relativity without needing it. The ether became the textbook example of an idea science had outgrown. And now a Nobel laureate is putting it back. Not the old version, but the same instinct. That space itself is a something, not a nothing. That the medium is more fundamental than the things moving through it. And this isn't poetry. It's the only way the numbers work. Consider what physicists mean when they say the vacuum is active. Take a perfectly empty box, remove every particle, every scrap of matter, cool it toward absolute zero. By any ordinary definition, there is nothing left inside. And yet that nothing has energy. It is restless. In the language of the theory, pairs of particles flicker in and out of existence. Physicists call them virtual particles. Too fleeting to catch directly, but not too fleeting to matter. Put two metal plates very close together in that empty box, and they feel a faint attraction pulling them toward each other. The force is real. It has been measured, first in the late 1990s, and to steadily better precision since. Physicists still argue about the deepest way to describe why it happens. Nobody argues about whether it does. Empty space pulls. The electron tells the same story from the other side. Its magnetism has been calculated and measured to more than 10 decimal places, and the two numbers agree. One of the most precise matches in all of science. But that agreement only appears when you include the electron's constant interaction with the fields around it, even in perfect vacuum. Leave the activity of empty space out of the calculation, and the match falls apart. This is the strange thing worth sitting with. The most accurate predictions human beings have ever made about nature only come out right if empty space is full. And hold that thought, because 25 centuries before any of it, a tradition reached the same refusal to call empty space empty, by pure argument. Now go back 25 centuries to India and to one of the most systematic descriptions of reality any tradition ever attempted. Jain philosophy divides everything that exists into 6 fundamental substances, not gods, not elements in the Greek sense, categories of being, meant to account for absolutely everything, with nothing left over. There is soul and there is matter. There is space itself and there is time. That is 4, and none of them is surprising yet. It is the last 2 that stop you. But to see why they matter, start with the one that seems obvious. Space itself. The Jains called it Akasha, and even here, they were more careful than you'd expect. They split space into 2 kinds: Lokakasha, the inhabited region where things actually exist and events happen, and Alokakasha, an infinite emptiness beyond it, containing nothing at all, no matter, no motion, no events, just pure, extended void, going on forever. Hold on to that distinction, because it's the key to everything that follows. The Jains had a word for space that is genuinely empty, truly nothing, and they were adamant that the space we live in is not that. Why not? Because of a problem most traditions never even thought to ask about. Suppose you have matter, and you have empty space for it to sit in. What actually allows it to move? Space, they argued, is just the room. Room to exist in is not the same as permission to move. You can have all the empty space in the world, all the akasha there is, and that alone does not explain why motion is possible at all. Something has to make movement available. Space by itself just sits there. So they propose something extraordinary, a separate substance, invisible, without form, filling the entire inhabited universe, whose only job is to make motion possible. They called it Dharmastikaya. It does not push anything. It does not move itself. It is simply the medium without which nothing could move in the first place. The image they used was water and a fish. The water does not push the fish anywhere. It does not choose the direction. But without the water, the fish cannot swim at all. Dharmastikaya is the water, the enabling medium that does nothing and permits everything. And then, with a symmetry that is almost unsettling, they added its opposite, a second invisible, all-pervading substance whose only job is to make rest possible, to allow things that have stopped to stay stopped. They called it Adharmastikaya. If Dharmastikaya is why a moving thing can move, Adharmastikaya is why a still thing can stay still, instead of drifting forever. Notice what they've done. They started with what looked like empty space, and they argued it couldn't be empty. Because a genuinely empty space, their Alokakasha, is a place where nothing could ever happen. For a universe with events in it, you need more. You need a structure filling that space, invisible and formless, that makes the events possible. 2 substances, not matter, not energy, not space itself. A structural analog to an all-pervading medium, present everywhere, doing nothing you can see, invoked to explain why the most basic facts of the physical world are possible at all. Not a field, but the same move a field makes. Put something everywhere, invisible, and let it carry what visible things cannot do alone. You can feel why the comparison is tempting. A tradition that said space alone is not enough. That motion needs a hidden, all-pervading medium to happen in. Sitting right next to a Nobel physicist saying almost exactly that. And this is exactly where we have to be more careful than the sources that got here first. Because some of them have already run past the evidence. You can find respected writing that treats the Jain substances as a prediction, proof that ancient sages understood quantum field theory millennia early and that modern physics is only now catching up. That is not true, and it is worth being precise about why. The Jain thinkers did not do experiments. They built no mathematics of fields. They reached dharmastikaya through logical argument and scriptural authority. As the solution to a philosophical problem about how motion is possible, not as a description of anything they measured. Wilczek's grid is the opposite kind of claim. It is not a philosophical proposal. It is the plain language shadow of equations that have been tested to absurd precision in particle accelerators for 50 years. You can prove the grid wrong. You cannot prove a scripture wrong in the same way. That testability is the entire difference. So no, Jainism did not predict quantum field theory. The Jain thinkers were not doing physics, and Wilczek is not doing metaphysics, and nothing in modern physics validates the rest of the Jain system. The soul, the cosmology, the long path to liberation that dharmastikaya sits inside. Pull one idea out of that framework and wave a Nobel Prize at it, and you have understood neither. But strip all of that away, and something real is still sitting there, something worth the trouble of being honest about. Two traditions, with no contact between them, separated by 25 centuries and by every possible difference in method. One arguing from logic in ancient India, one calculating from experiment in modern laboratories. Both arrived at the same structural move. Both refused to treat empty space as mere nothingness. Both decided the medium is more fundamental than the objects moving through it. One reached that by arguing from the puzzle of how motion is possible at all, the other by calculating from the behavior of matter at the smallest scale. They did not reach the same claim, one is a metaphysics of motion, the other an ontology of matter. What they share is narrower and stranger, the refusal to believe the emptiness is empty. They are not the same idea. One is a tested theory of the strong force. The other is a metaphysical category inside a soteriology. What they share is not a content. It is a shape. The same suspicion, reached twice, that the emptiness is doing work. You can notice the smaller version of this without any physics or philosophy at all. Think about the last time a room felt empty. It wasn't. It was full of air you were breathing, sound moving through it, light crossing it, the pull of gravity holding you in the chair. Empty was never a description of what was there. It was a description of what you had stopped paying attention to. That is the instinct both traditions refused. The idea that because you can't see the medium, there isn't one. The idea that the background is nothing just because it holds still. Nothing here is settled into a single answer. Physicists still argue about what the vacuum really is. Jain philosophy is a living tradition that would not recognize itself in a physics documentary, and would be right not to. Nobody proved anything by placing these two side by side. What's actually here is smaller and more honest. A Nobel laureate looked as deeply into matter as anyone ever has, and reported that the empty space was the main event. And 25 centuries earlier, working with nothing but argument, a tradition looked at the same emptiness and decided it could not possibly be nothing. Because if it were, nothing could ever move. Two answers to a question most people never think to ask. What is the nothing actually made of? Ancient wisdom, quantum mystery, direct knowing. This is quantum Gnosis.